He was certain he could get away with anything. When this booze-reeking tourist dared to wipe his greasy, sweaty hands on the immaculate uniform, the guard's reaction stunned everyone around. What followed next made the crowd freeze in bewilderment. A crowd of tourists had been milling around the palace since early morning, but all attention suddenly shifted to a single individual. He literally reeked of a mix of booze and sweat so strongly that people tried to keep their distance. He was a short, round man with a flushed face and a dirty t-shirt that barely contained his sizable belly. He stood unsteadily on his feet, mumbling something slurred, apparently soaked in alcohol. In one hand, he clutched a half-eaten fried chicken, and the fingers of his other hand were so greasy they seemed to glisten in the sunlight. As he approached the rows of royal guards, he began to shout, "Where are those fancy guys in red suits? I came to see some living mannequins." The gazes of tourists and security converged on him, but this brash character didn't think of stopping. He let out a loud burp, which provoked a wave of disgust from those around him, and then barreled forward, brandishing the gnawed chicken leg. Once he was only a few steps away from the motionless guard, the chubby man slowly ran his hand over his forehead and wiped it on his t-shirt, leaving yet another damp streak. Then, as if forgetting he'd just wiped it, he shoved that same hand into his mouth, apparently trying to lick off the remaining grease. "Hey there! Hey, you in red! You hear me? Why you so stiff?" he yelled, and a wave of disapproving murmurs rolled through the crowd. But that only egged him on. His sweaty armpits clearly hadn't met a stick of deodorant, and the stench of alcohol was so strong that people recoiled. It seemed he was relishing the effect he was creating and decided to up the ante. "Well then, let's see what you're really made of," he said, stepping up close and raising his greasy hand toward the guard's collar. The truly repulsive part began the moment he locked eyes with that gleaming uniform and, snickering, started lowering his palm right onto it, intending to wipe his sweaty, grease-stained fingers on it. The guard, though under orders not to react, tensed on the inside. He still appeared calm, but anyone standing close could sense he was mere seconds from losing that composure. "You statue, come on, move! Or are you scared of me?" the fat man barked, finally dragging his hand across the uniform and leaving revolting smears. The crowd gasped. A few people nearby began whispering, "This is outrageous disrespect. Someone stop him." But the heavy-set tourist only burst into laughter again, seeing that the guard still wasn't moving. Swaying drunkenly, the fat man started shouting even louder. "See? I'm the king here. I can do whatever I want. Might as well dance for me." He managed to toss the leftover chicken scraps at the guard's feet, then jabbed a greasy finger into the guard's chest. "Come on, get going, toy soldier! Entertain me!" But at that moment, something in the air clearly changed. In the span of a split second, the guard broke his silence. He sharply turned his head toward the tourist and commanded in a loud voice, "Step away from me immediately!" The fat man jumped back and, slipping on his own discarded chicken bits, nearly hit the ground. The onlookers gasped. Without giving the offender a chance to recover, the guard took a short but decisive step forward, raising his rifle. You could tell he was boiling inside but struggling to keep it together. Through his drunken haze, the fat man realized the jokes were over. However, instead of backing off, he kept mouthing off, "Who do you think you are? I'm a tourist. I pay money for this show. You're supposed to listen to me." Voices started calling out in the crowd. "You've gone too far. He could have you arrested. Leave him alone. Are you crazy?" But the boorish man, worked up and barely thinking straight, tried once more to grab the uniform. I'll snatch you by the collar, you hear?" That was the last straw. Before the fat man could close in again, the guard, until now bound by protocols and self-restraint, swiftly raised his rifle and shouted, "Stand back, now!" To the crowd's surprise, he moved with startling speed, In a precise maneuver, he herded the tourist back several steps, pointing the muzzle of his rifle downward, but clearly enough to show he meant business. The tourist, stunned by this turn of events, started to blurt out in a slurred voice, "How dare you? I'm gonna complain. But palace security had already rushed over, drawn by the commotion. Two sturdy men in uniform seized the troublemaker by his arms, even as he tried to break free and stomped his feet in protest. "Let go of me. I'm the boss here. You, he roared, straining to form coherent words. In response, they only held him tighter and began to lead him away from the guard. The crowd responded with cheers and laughter. Some people were filming videos, calling out, "This is so embarrassing, a teachable moment for all those tourists." He got exactly what he deserved. Learn some respect for the guard. Meanwhile, the guard calmly took a measured breath, adjusted his uniform, now bearing a few greasy stains, and resumed his post as if nothing had happened. Only the slight flush on his cheeks betrayed how furious he'd been. As they dragged the fat man away, the security guards kept telling him to shut it, but he kept yelling, "I got my hands all dirty 'cause of you, and I... But his words were drowned out by the crowd's laughter. Thus ended a short but very loud episode of how a drunk, foul-smelling tourist decided to wipe his filthy hands on a guard's uniform and paid dearly for it. No one doubted that the following morning, video of this disgrace would go viral on social media, and more importantly, remain in viewers' minds as a prime example of what happens when you show blatant disrespect for traditions, and for those whose duty it is to safeguard them.